So when God plans a big blessing, you get clues. Are you paying attention? I want to share something with you that happened to my dear friend, Sarah, just last year. She'd been struggling in her corporate job for months, feeling like she was drowning in meaninglessness, her soul crying out for something more. Every morning, she'd sit in traffic, gripping the steering wheel, asking the universe, there has to be more than this, doesn't there? Then the clues started appearing. First, it was a book that literally fell off a shelf at the bookstore and landed at her feet, a book about starting your own business. She laughed it off as coincidence. Next, her neighbor mentioned she was looking for someone to help with her small marketing company. Sarah smiled politely and changed the subject. Then her company announced layoff, and instead of fear, she felt a strange sense of relief wash over her. Still, she didn't connect the dots. It wasn't until she was sitting in her car after being let go, tears streaming down her face, that she noticed the billboard across the street. Your next chapter starts now. That's when it hit her. The universe hadn't been punishing her. It had been preparing her. All those little nudges, those gentle whispers, those seeming coincidences weren't random at all. They were breadcrumbs leading her toward her blessing. Today, Sarah runs a thriving consulting business from her home, working with clients she loves, making more money than she ever did in corporate, and most importantly, feeling alive again. But here's what she tells me. Friend, the blessing wasn't just the business. The blessing was learning to listen, learning to trust, learning to see that I was never alone in this journey. How many of us are walking through life like Sarah was in those early months? How many blessings are we missing because we're too busy, too distracted, too afraid to notice the clues? How many times has the divine tried to get our attention only to find us rushing past, earbuds in, head down, completely oblivious to the magic unfolding around us? I've spent decades studying the art of living, and if I've learned anything, it's this: God doesn't drop blessings on us like lightning bolts from a clear sky. The divine is far more elegant, far more loving than that. Instead, blessings arrive like the dawn, slowly, gently, with plenty of signs that the sun is about to rise if we're awake enough to notice the changing colors in the sky. Think about it. Before a flower blooms, there are signs. The soil grows rich, the roots deepen, the stem strengthens. Before spring arrives, there are clues everywhere: longer days, warmer breezes, the first brave buds appearing on bare branches. Before love enters our life, there are hints. We become ready for it. We clear space for it. We begin to see it reflected in the world around us. The same is true for every blessing that's meant for you. The new job, the healed relationship, the creative breakthrough, the spiritual awakening. They don't just appear out of nowhere. They announce themselves through a series of gentle signs, loving nudges, and divine synchronicities. The question isn't whether the clues are there. The question is, are you paying attention? Let me tell you what these clues actually look like, because they're often much more subtle than we expect. They don't arrive with trumpet fanfare or neon signs. They whisper rather than shout. They invite rather than demand. Sometimes a clue is a feeling, a gentle stirring in your heart when someone mentions a particular opportunity, an inexplicable sense of rightness when you walk into a certain place, or a peaceful knowing that says, yes, even when your logical mind is saying, but. I remember when I was considering leaving my teaching position to write full-time. My mind was full of fear and doubt, but every time I sat quietly with the idea, my entire body relaxed. That inner peace was my clue. The blessing wasn't just waiting for me, it was calling to me. Other times, clues come through repetition. You keep hearing the same advice from different sources. The same book title catches your eye multiple times. You have the same conversation with 3 different people in 1 week. The universe is rarely subtle when it really wants to get our attention. It just keeps lovingly tapping us on the shoulder until we turn around. And sometimes, clues come disguised as obstacles or delays. This is perhaps the most challenging kind of guidance to recognize, because it feels like the opposite of blessing. But how many times have you looked back and realized that the relationship that didn't work out, the job you didn't get, or the opportunity that fell through was actually redirecting you towards something infinitely better. Those closed doors weren't denials. They were course corrections. I think of my friend Michael, who applied for his dream job 3 times and was rejected each time. He was devastated, questioning everything. But during those months of waiting, he started a small side project out of frustration and boredom. That side project is now $1 million business, and he often laughs about how the universe knew better than he did what his real dream should be. The rejections weren't punishments. They were protection and redirection. Here's what I've discovered: God's clues often come wrapped in the very experiences we're trying to avoid. The delay that teaches us patience, the loss that opens our heart to compassion, the failure that strips away our ego and reveals our authentic power. The blessing isn't separate from these experiences. The blessing is woven through them, teaching us, preparing us, making us ready for what we're truly meant to receive. But here's the beautiful part. The divine doesn't just leave clues for us to stumble upon by accident. There's a sacred partnership at work here. The more we learn to pay attention, the more clues we receive. The more we trust the process, the clearer the guidance becomes. It's as if the universe is constantly adjusting its volume based on how well we're listening. This brings us to something crucial: awareness. Most of us move through life in a kind of spiritual sleepwalk. We're physically present but energetically absent. We're thinking about yesterday's problems or tomorrow's worries while life's miracles are unfolding in this very moment. We're so busy making plans that we miss the divine's plans for us. Real awareness, the kind that allows us to catch God's clues, requires us to slow down. It asks us to be here, now, fully present to what is. It invites us to put down our phones, turn off the constant mental chatter, and simply be available to life as it's happening. I love to use the metaphor of a radio. The divine's guidance is always broadcasting, but if we're not tuned to the right frequency, if there's too much static in our minds, we'll miss the transmission entirely. Meditation, prayer, quiet walks in nature, journaling, these aren't just nice spiritual practices. They're tools for clearing the static, for fine-tuning our inner radio so we can receive the guidance that's always available. Let me invite you to try something right now. Take a deep breath and let your body settle. For just this moment, put aside your to-do list, your worries, your plans. Instead, ask yourself, what has been trying to get my attention lately? What patterns have I been noticing? What keeps showing up in my life? What doors have been opening? What doors have been closing? Don't analyze or judge. Just notice. Feel what comes up. Sometimes the most profound guidance comes not through dramatic signs, but through the gentle stirrings of our own intuitions. That quiet voice that says, call her, or take that class, or say yes to that invitation. We've been so conditioned to trust only what our logical mind can verify that we've forgotten how to honor the wisdom that comes through feelings, through knowing, through the subtle intelligence of the heart. I remember meeting a woman at one of my workshops who told me she'd been getting the same intuitive nudge for months to learn to paint. Her rational mind dismissed it immediately. She was a busy accountant with no artistic training. She didn't have time for hobbies. But the nudge persisted. Finally, she signed up for a beginner's art class, more to silence the inner voice than because she believed anything would come of it. 6 months later, she discovered she had a natural gift for watercolors. A year after that, she was supplementing her income selling her paintings online. 2 years later, she'd transitioned to teaching art therapy, combining her analytical skills with her newfound creative abilities. She now tells me that learning to paint wasn't just a hobby. It was the key that unlocked a whole new version of herself. The blessing wasn't just artistic ability, it was the courage to trust her inner wisdom. This is what divine timing looks like. Not everything happens when we think it should, but everything happens when we're ready for it. The blessing you're praying for might be preparing you as much as you're preparing for it. Think about the seed again. When you plant a seed, you don't dig it up every day to check on its progress. You trust that in the darkness of the soil, something beautiful is taking root. You water it, you give it sunlight, and you wait with faith. The darkness isn't punishment, it's necessary. The waiting isn't wasted time, it's growth time. The same is true for the blessings in our lives. There's often a period of what I call sacred gestation. A time when things are developing beneath the surface, invisible to us but very real nonetheless. During this time, it might seem like nothing is happening. We might feel forgotten by the universe. But if we could see with spiritual eyes, we'd see that everything is moving, shifting, aligning in perfect timing. I think of the woman who prayed for years to meet her soulmate. During those years of waiting, she learned to love herself, to pursue her passions, to become the kind of partner she wanted to attract. When love finally arrived, she realized the waiting period hadn't been empty. It had been preparation. She'd become ready for a love she couldn't have handled or appreciated years earlier. Or consider the man who lost his job at 50 and spent 2 years searching for something new. During those difficult months, he discovered strengths he didn't know he had, learned skills he'd never thought he needed, and clarified values that had been buried under years of routine. When the perfect opportunity finally appeared, he was not only qualified for it, he was transformed by the journey of getting there. This is what I mean when I say that God's timing is perfect timing. Not convenient timing, it's not our preferred timing, but perfect timing. The blessing arrives precisely when we're ready to receive it, handle it, and be transformed by it. But here's what requires tremendous courage, trusting the process, even when we can't see the outcome. Faith isn't believing that everything will work out exactly as we hope. Faith is believing that we're being lovingly guided, even when the path is unclear, even when it feels like we're walking through darkness. Let me share with you what changed everything for me in my own understanding of how the divine speaks through difficulty. Years ago, I found myself in what felt like an endless wilderness of rejection and struggle. My writing was being dismissed by publishers who called my spiritual insights too unconventional. My financial situation had become precarious to the point where I was rationing meals. I felt like I was fighting against forces beyond my understanding, crying out to heaven for some sign that I was on the right path. Instead of relief, the struggles intensified. But then something mystical occurred that I've never spoken about publicly until now. I was walking on the beach one dawn, my heart heavy with doubt, when I discovered a piece of driftwood that stopped me in my tracks. It wasn't just any piece of wood. It was sculpted into the most extraordinary shape, smooth and beautiful, carved by years of being tossed against rocks by relentless waves. As I held it in my hands, I heard a voice as clear as if someone were standing beside me. What the storms meant to destroy, they have made beautiful. In that sacred moment, I understood with blazing clarity that my struggles weren't obstacles to my path. They were the path itself. Every rejection had been teaching me to write with more authenticity, stripping away anything that wasn't pure truth. Every financial pressure had been showing me what I could live without, revealing what truly mattered. Every moment of feeling lost had been developing the inner compass I would need to guide others who felt equally lost in their own spiritual wilderness. I realized I was being shaped by the very forces that felt like they were breaking me down. The difficulties weren't punishment, they were preparation. The continuous struggle wasn't evidence of divine abandonment, it was evidence of divine investment in my transformation. That evening, as I sat with this revelation, my phone rang with an opportunity that would change everything. But I know now that the real miracle wasn't the call itself, but the fact that I was finally ready to receive it. I had been sculpted by struggle into someone who could handle the blessing that was coming. This brings us to a truth that will revolutionize how you see your own challenges. Often, the real blessing isn't what we thought we were asking for. It's who we become while we're being forged in the fires of adversity. The patience we develop while enduring what seems unbearable. The faith we build while walking through valleys where we can't see the path ahead. the compassion we discover while sharing the pain of others who struggle, the unshakable wisdom we gain from making mistakes that become our greatest teachers. These aren't consolation prizes for lives that didn't go as planned. They're the real treasures, the gifts that can never be taken from us, the qualities that transform us from ordinary people into beacons of hope for others who are lost in their own darkness. When we align ourselves with this understanding, something magical happens. We stop seeing delays as punishment and start recognizing them as preparation. We stop resenting obstacles and start appreciating them as opportunities to grow stronger. We stop demanding immediate answers and start enjoying the mystery of unfolding possibilities. This alignment, this inner shift from resistance to acceptance, from fear to trust, from impatience to faith, is perhaps the most important preparation we can make for receiving our blessings. Because here's the truth, we don't just receive blessings randomly. We receive them when we're vibrationally aligned with them, when we've become the kind of person who can handle them gracefully. If you're praying for abundance, the universe might be preparing you by teaching you gratitude for what you already have. If you're asking for love, you might be guided first to heal old wounds and learn to love yourself. If you're seeking purpose, you might be taken through experiences that clarify your values and reveal your unique gifts. This isn't delay, this is divine intelligence at work. The blessing you receive after you've been prepared for it will be infinitely richer and more meaningful than one that arrives before you're ready. Let me invite you to another moment of reflection. Think about a blessing you've received in your life, something that came after a period of waiting, struggle, or uncertainty. Now consider, who were you before this blessing arrived? Who had you become by the time it came? Can you see how the waiting period wasn't empty, but was actually preparing you to receive and appreciate what came? I remember speaking with a woman who'd struggled with infertility for years before finally adopting her daughter. She told me something beautiful. I thought the waiting was torture, but I now see it was transformation. I had to let go of controlling how my child would come to me and simply open my heart to however love wanted to arrive. By the time my daughter came home, I was ready to love her exactly as she was, not as a substitution for the biological child I'd imagined, but as the perfect soul meant for our family. This is the alchemy of divine timing. It doesn't just bring us what we want, it transforms us into people who can truly receive it. But let's be honest, this process isn't always comfortable. Sometimes the preparation feels like testing. Sometimes the clues are confusing. Sometimes the timing feels completely wrong. And that's okay. The spiritual journey isn't about being comfortable. It's about growing into the fullness of who we're meant to be. When you find yourself in the middle of uncertainty, when the clues seem contradictory, when the timing feels off, remember this: you are not being punished or forgotten. You are being lovingly prepared. Every experience is serving your highest good, even when you can't see how. The art is learning to trust the process without needing to understand every step. It's developing what I call sacred patience. Not the grit your teeth kind of waiting, but the peaceful knowing that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. It's the difference between a child demanding, "Are we there yet?" every 5 minutes, and a seasoned traveler who enjoys the scenery along the way, trusting that the destination will arrive at the perfect time. This trust, this sacred patience, this willingness to be present to the journey rather than fixated on the destination. These are the qualities that keep our hearts open to receiving the clues, the nudges, the gentle guidance that's always available to us. And here's something beautiful: the more we learn to trust this process in small ways, the more the universe trusts us with bigger opportunities. It's as if the divine says, "Look how beautifully they handled that uncertainty. Look how gracefully they moved through that challenging period. They're ready for something more." But this readiness isn't just about external circumstances aligning. It's about internal preparation. It's about clearing out old fears that would block the blessing. It's about releasing resentments that would poison the gift. It's about developing the faith muscles that can hold space for miracles. Sometimes this internal preparation looks like forgiveness work, letting go of old hurts that would interfere with new relationships. Sometimes it looks like healing childhood wounds that would sabotage success. Sometimes it looks like developing daily practices that keep us connected to our spiritual center. I often tell people that the universe doesn't just want to give you a blessing. It wants to give you a blessing you can keep. And that requires becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts and maintains what you're asking for. If you want lasting love, you must become loving. If you want authentic success, you must align with your authentic self. If you want spiritual fulfillment, you must cultivate spiritual practices. The external blessing mirrors the internal reality you've created. This is why some people seem to attract one blessing after another while others struggle to receive even small gifts. It's not that God plays favorites. It's that some people have learned to prepare the soil of their lives for seeds of blessing to take root and grow. So how do we prepare this soil? How do we align ourselves with the blessings that are trying to reach us? It begins with gratitude. Not grateful for what you hope to receive, but grateful for what's already here. When we can find genuine appreciation for our current circumstances, even the challenging ones, we create space for more blessings to flow into our experience. Gratitude is like tuning our inner radio to the frequency of abundance. Take a moment right now to scan your life for things you might have been taking for granted. It's the breath moving through your body, the roof over your head, the people who care about you. The simple miracle of consciousness itself. Feel the warmth that arises when you truly appreciate these gifts. This warmth is magnetic. It draws more experiences to be grateful for. The preparation also involves what I call divine housekeeping, clearing out the old to make room for the new. This might mean decluttering your physical space, but more importantly, it means decluttering your mental and emotional space, releasing grudges, forgiving past mistakes. Letting go of dreams that no longer serve you to make space for ones that do. I remember working with a man who'd been praying for a new romantic relationship for years. But every conversation we had was filled with complaints about his ex-wife, stories of how women had hurt him, fears about being vulnerable again. He was essentially asking the universe to bring love into a heart that was still closed, still protected, still focused on past pain, rather than present possibilities. The preparation he needed wasn't dating strategies. It was healing work that would allow him to trust love again. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do for ourselves is to look honestly at what might be blocking our blessings. What fears are we holding on to? What stories are we telling ourselves about why we can't have what we want? What patterns are we repeating that keep us stuck in old circumstances? This isn't about judgment or self-criticism. It's about gentle, honest self-examination that leads to freedom. When we can see our blocks with compassion, we can begin to release them with grace. And here's something magical that happens during this preparation phase. We often discover that the process of getting ready for our blessing is as fulfilling as receiving the blessing itself. The person who learns to love themselves while preparing for romantic love finds they're already living a love story. The individual who develops their skills while waiting for the perfect job discovers they're already becoming who they want to be professionally. This is why I say the blessing and the preparation for the blessing are often the same thing. The journey is the destination. Who you become while waiting for your miracle is the miracle. But let's talk about what happens when we think we've been preparing forever, when we've been seeing clues and trusting the process and aligning our energy, and still the blessing seems distant. What about those times when faith feels harder than fear, when trust feels more difficult than control? These are the moments that test our spiritual maturity. These are the times when we have the opportunity to deepen our relationship with the divine from one of transaction to one of trust. Instead of I'll believe when I receive, we learn to believe because we believe. Instead of I'll trust when I understand, we learn to trust because trust itself is a blessing. I think of the farmer who plants seeds in spring, and then waits months to see the harvest. She doesn't dig up the seeds to check their progress. She doesn't lose faith because she can't see immediate results. She trusts the natural process, tends the soil, provides water and nutrients, and waits with confidence because she understands how growth works. Sometimes our spiritual growth requires this same kind of faith. We plant the seeds of our prayers, we tend the soil of our hearts, we provide the water of trust and the nutrients of right action, and we wait, not with anxiety, but with the confidence that comes from understanding how blessings work. And here's what I've observed over decades of studying this process. The blessings that come after periods of deep trust are often exponentially more beautiful than what we originally asked for. It's as if the universe says, because you trusted me even when you couldn't see the outcome, because you remained faithful even in uncertainty, I'm going to give you something far beyond what you imagined. The woman who waited years for the right partner and used that time to become her most authentic self often attracts a love that's deeper and more fulfilling than she dreamed possible. The entrepreneur who persevered through multiple failures and learned from each one often creates a business that serves the world in ways they never initially conceived. This is the exponential nature of divine blessings. They don't just meet our needs, they exceed our imagination. But this exponential quality requires the exponential faith that comes from trusting completely, even when we can't see the whole picture. Let me share something that might comfort you if you're in a waiting season right now. The spiritual masters throughout history have all spoken about what they call the dark night of the soul. Those periods when we feel disconnected from divine guidance, when the clues seem to stop coming, when our faith is tested to its core. But here's what they discovered: these dark nights aren't evidence that God has abandoned us. They're evidence that we're ready for a deeper level of relationship with the divine. They're invitations to trust beyond circumstances, to believe beyond evidence, to have faith in the love that's always present even when we can't feel it. These periods of spiritual silence often precede the most significant breakthroughs. The seed doesn't just rest quietly in the soil. It appears to die before it's reborn as something completely new. The caterpillar doesn't just take a nap in the cocoon. It dissolves entirely before emerging as a butterfly. If you're in what feels like a dark night right now, if the clues have seemed to stop coming, if your faith is being stretched beyond what feels comfortable, take heart. This isn't the end of your story. It might be the beginning of the most beautiful chapter yet. You're not being forgotten. You're being prepared for transformations. And even in these times of spiritual quiet, the clues are still there. They're just subtler, deeper, requiring a more mature spiritual eye to recognize them. The clue might be in your growing capacity for patience. It might be in your increasing compassion for others who are struggling. It might be in your deepening understanding of what truly matters in life. Sometimes the most profound clue of all is our ability to maintain faith in the midst of uncertainty. This faith itself becomes the foundation for blessings we couldn't have handled without it. As we near the end of our time together, I want to leave you with something practical, something you can take with you as you go back into your daily life, more aware now of the clues that surround you. Tonight, before you go to sleep, ask yourself, what tried to get my attention today? What patterns am I noticing in my life? What doors are opening that I might be hesitating to walk through? What doors are closing that might be redirecting me towards something better? Don't rush to answer these questions. Let them simmer in your consciousness. Trust that insights will come, maybe not immediately, but in perfect timing. Remember, the goal isn't to figure everything out. The goal is to remain open, aware, and responsive to the loving guidance that's always available. And in the morning, before you launch into your day, take a moment to set an intention. I am open to receiving clues from the divine today. I trust that I'm being lovingly guided. I'm willing to see opportunities I might have missed before. I'm ready to act on the nudges that feel right in my heart. This simple practice, this daily commitment to awareness and trust, can transform your entire experience of life. You'll begin to notice synchronicities you've been blind to. You'll feel guided in ways you've never experienced. You'll start to see that you're not walking through life alone, but are being lovingly accompanied every step of the way. Remember, when God plans a big blessing, you get clues. The question isn't whether they're there. The question is, are you paying attention? Are you slowing down enough to notice? Are you trusting enough to follow? Are you preparing your heart to receive? Your blessing might be closer than you think. The clues might be all around you right now. The only thing standing between you and the miracle you've been praying for might be your willingness to see it, trust it, and act on it. So as you leave here today, carry this knowledge with you. You are loved, you are guided, and you are never alone. The universe is conspiring in your favor, arranging circumstances for your highest good, preparing blessings that will astound you with their beauty and perfect timing. Your job isn't to make it all happen. Your job is to pay attention, to trust, to prepare your heart, and to remain open to miracles. The blessing you've been waiting for might arrive tomorrow, or next week, or next year. But one thing I know for certain, when it comes, you'll look back and see that every step of the journey, every delay, every detour, every moment of uncertainty was preparing you to receive it fully and gratefully. When God plans a big blessing, you get clues. The question that will determine your entire future is this: are you paying attention? The answer, I trust, is yes. And that willingness to pay attention, that openness to guidance, that trust in the process, that itself is already a blessing. In fact, it might be the greatest blessing of all, because once you learn to see the world this way, you'll discover that blessings aren't rare events that happen occasionally. They're the natural state of a life lived in alignment with love, trust, and divine timing. Go now with eyes wide open, heart receptive, and spirit ready. Your clues are waiting. Your blessing is on its way. And the journey itself is already a gift beyond measure.